Morning at the West Africa Business Conference, help me welcome Executive Secretary Songwe.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Let me start by saying what a pleasure it is to be with you today. Her Excellency, Madam Zainab Ahmed, Minister of Finance of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Tay Kunzi, the ECOWAS Commissioner for Trade, the UN Resident Coordinator, all members of the UN family, the business sector, of course, the leaders, WIMBY, Global Compass, and everybody else we're doing this conference with today, representatives of youth associations, representatives of women entrepreneurs, dear partners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is such a pleasure to welcome you to the West Africa Regional Business Forum organized by the Economic Commissions for Africa's Sub-Regional Office for West Africa in partnership with the Compass Global Services and several other regional organizations. This forum is consistent with ECA's Business Forum. We organize once a year on the margins of the African Union Summit, essentially to facilitate the conversation between the private sector and policymakers, but also to ensure that particularly the youth and women have a voice in decisions that are being made that determine whether or not they have access to business and whether they can sustain their businesses. The West Africa Business Forum on empowering women and youth to spur Africa's transformational agenda is timely, as it is coming on the heels of the unprecedented health, social, and economic shocks that the world has experienced since 2019, the consequences of which continue to hamper the hard-won progress our continent has made over the past decade. However, we're doing it in a good space. Today, when we look around and we see, particularly, you spoke about Nigeria and being proud of being Nigerian, we know that West African women and youth are one of the most active, one of the most entrepreneurial across the globe, not just on the continent. So if ever there was a space to discuss women and youth and Africa's recovery from this crisis, I think that this is the right place to do it because of the vibrancy of the Nigerian and the West African economic market, but also the size, which delivers for West Africa, I think, an unprecedented advantage to be able to take advantage of this unique opportunity that we have in trying to grow forward and grow out of this crisis. Already in June last year, ECA and its partners, the African Union Commission and the Generated Unlimited, jointly convened a virtual Africa Youth Policy consultation on the theme COVID-19 in Africa, building forward better with the youth and young Africans, to take stock of the implications of the COVID-19 pandemic for youth in Africa, but also to see how we can begin to formulate policies which we suggest to our leaders and provide a platform for capturing voices of over 3,900 Africans who joined that forum to see whether we could provide more support. Together with the Afro-Exim Bank, the Economic Commission for Africa also runs a small and medium enterprise sessions for the private sector to see again how we can provide access to finance for the private sector. We have a program, joint program between Afro-Exim Bank and the Economic Commission for Africa called the Batimpa program, which during the COVID crisis has supported over $8 billion in financing for PPEs, for retrofitting businesses to supply healthcare accessories. We're going beyond that now and looking at the agriculture sector, the energy sector, and to see how we can support more small and medium enterprises, more of Africa's youth, and of course with Africa's youth, to continue their businesses. Of course, as we know, in the crisis, one of the first things we want to do is ensure that we can keep good businesses open, ensure that we protect good businesses from falling below, because we know that when businesses fall, it's more difficult to lift them up. So we have focused a lot of our attention on that. Africa, and particularly the West Africa region, has three things working for it, if, of course, it's able to harness and leverage some of these advantages. The first thing is the population dynamics on the continent, but in the region in particular. The African population is estimated at 1.3 billion in 2020, of which over 254 million are the youth. It is estimated that 10 to 12 million of this youth are entering the workforce every year, while only 3.1 million of them can find formal jobs. So we need to be able to ensure that we can grow the job space. But this is not necessarily growing the job space, as I'm sure Minister Zainab will be able to say, by hoping that the state employs you, but that we've become entrepreneurs, captains of industry. If ever there was a place where Nigerians and West Africans had role models, it is here, because we know we've seen the big giants and captains of industry, beginning, of course, with Aliko Dangote and Tony Elumelu and Ika Kimoje, across the sphere of businesses, from Nollywood to the healthcare sector to the agriculture sector. I think that the West African region has been able to demonstrate that it has the right businesses and it can actually grow out of that. But we do need to make sure, first of all, that we have the perfect match between the employment and the jobs that our youth are looking for and the training that they get. Many of the youth in the West Africa region, but in Africa in general, are not getting the right training that they need, and therefore they're not in employment, education, or training. They are unemployed. We have about 20.8% of all of Africa's youth that are neither in employment, neither continuing an education, and are not studying either. This is particularly acute for women. So the gender gap between the men that are not in employment, training, and education, and women is about 10%. So there's 10% more women that are out of a job than they are men in the region. We need to do more. We need to do better. West African women are known to be the powerhouse of our growth and our economies. They are the ones who trade across borders, but we need to do more to ensure that as they do that, we provide the right environment for them to be able to do their business. Part of course, providing this right environment is creating the right regulatory framework. The largest and most effective regulatory framework that our leaders have tried to put in place is, of course, the African Continental Free Trade Area. The Economic Commission for Africa is very proud to have been part of Nigeria's journey through the AFCFTA ratification. We hope that as the AFCFTA is ratified by Nigeria, many more, all of West Africa will be the first sub-region to fully ratify the AFCFTA. The AFCFTA for us is the jobs motto for the continent. It stands to grow Africa's GDP by an additional $1 trillion if we were able to deliver on what is needed. First of all, unlocking our borders, building more supply chains, making sure that a Nigerian woman and an Ivorian woman and a woman from Benin can all work together to create a supply chain for textiles, create a supply chain for fashion, a supply chain for agro-industry that essentially grows the value of the product, makes sure that they earn more from that, but also that they can become sub-regional and why not continental and international businesses and not just be limited to the geographies in which we exist today. In the room today with you, you have women businesses from Niger, women businesses from Senegal, and we look and hope that in the room, but also on these virtual platforms, we can begin to build coalitions of women across the sub-region, looking, of course, to conquer the rest of Africa, because the CFTA is not just about ECOWAS. ECOWAS has always been there. The CFTA is about reaching out now to regions that are beyond ECOWAS and seeing what more and what kinds of businesses the West African woman from the Gambia to Niger to Sierra Leone to Senegal and Togo can do and can offer as Zimbabwean and Zambian and Eswatini and South African counterparts. That really is the purpose of this conversation today, is how can we bring the women of West Africa today to leverage the financing that exists, to leverage the knowledge, to leverage the innovation, to leverage the vibrancy that they have, and then ensure that they can take their businesses just one notch higher to the global sub-region and take advantage, of course, then of markets that are further beyond in the East and, of course, in the West. And finally, to make sure that the youth and the younger women who are with us today can look up, and this is another advantage of the sub-region, they are already powering lights, women leading the business sector across West Africa, that the youth of today can maybe build the mentorship programs. The Economic Commission for Africa has just launched what we call the Women Impact Fund, looking to see how we can leverage young women businesses and see how we can support them to create funds for themselves, ensure that they themselves can be decision makers in where we invest. Today, there are many equity funds in Nigeria, most of them run by men. We're hoping that with the Economic Commission for Africa, in partnership with Standard Bank, innovative idea of Women's Impact Fund, we can actually bring more women into the business, not just of requesting resources, but also being decision makers in who gets more financial support. because we believe that when women finance women, women finance women to be more innovative, women finance women to be more prosperous, but also women are more resilient and more patient with others in ensuring that they can go forward and they can move forward better. But for all this to happen, we need our policy, and of course, Minister Zainab agrees with me on this, we need our policymakers to ensure that in sectors like the ICT sector, in digital technology, tourism, we have the right infrastructure and we have the right policy framework to ensure that we can actually create jobs and allow the space for the youth to be able to be innovative and become entrepreneurs themselves. This forum is the first of its kind, discussing how we can ensure that women and youth are part and parcel of Africa's build forward better also in a sustainable fashion, the green economy, looking for home-built ideas and innovations that will ensure that we protect our environment. We have done a number of studies that show us that when we do green growth, we actually create more jobs and we actually add more value to the sectors in which we're performing. So we also hope that Nigeria can be a leader in the whole green growth and climate change division and see how we can work, for example, to change the whole gas flaring system into job creation. Can we convert the gas into more energy, which reduces the cost of energy, ensures that women can actually use sufficient, cheap, affordable, and accessible energy to power their businesses and ensure that they become more competitive across the continent, as we see happening in East Asia and others. With those few remarks, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Madam Minister, whom I thank for all her support, a champion of women, not just in Nigeria or in West Africa, but for women across the continent. You are a role model to many who look up to you. I want to thank you for all your support to the Economic Commission for Africa, but to all the women in the room as well, everybody else. It is only together as a continent that we can come behind the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement and ensure that we get out of this crisis. Yes, today we're fighting the COVID pandemic, but we're hoping that as Africa vaccinates more, and the numbers are not where they're supposed to be yet, but we're working on that, and we hope that everyone takes the vaccine. It's the only way out of this crisis. That we can ensure that as we grow out of this crisis, we actually get more women into the healthcare sector. We have shown that the healthcare sector has a potential of about $280 billion by 2030. Africa is only today gaining 2% of that market. We can do more, we can do better, and I'm sure it's a sector that most women and youth can join. So again, I want to thank everybody for listening, being with us today to launch this first inaugural West Africa Business Forum in Lagos. Thanks for hosting us in the City of Business. And we hope to continue this conversation, but not just to continue the conversation, but to really create jobs so that when we meet next year, we can see what we have done to lift policy, to provide better financing, to improve infrastructure, and to ensure that you have access to more and larger markets, and that you can tell us your stories and your journey so that we can continue to support. So once again, thank you for this conference. I want to thank in particular all the organizers, the Economic Commission for Africa and its team, the director, Madam Gone Diop, who is there with you as well, for all the support and for the vision she has in leading the sub-region. I thank you for your attention.